This is the Funai model VP-1500. This was their very first VHS VCR, technically VCP. And this was a rental machine. This is a standard play only unit. It's from 1984. And well, I did have a video on this over 10 years ago. It's time for another service tune-up on it. I didn't lubricate it or anything last time, so we're gonna lube up the tape path and everything. It does have a new belt. We can inspect that and then check everything else out on it. But yeah, this is the very first Funai that was made and also imported into the US. So we're gonna go ahead and take it apart. All right, I'm just taking the belt off. It's still good. I'm gonna clean it. This is the very first Shintom. Very similar, but has some differences. Like there's no bottom bearing plate on this. And but I'm gonna lubricate this and everything in here. But it also directly drives the mechanism down here. That explains why this doesn't do some special effects and stuff. It's a simplified mechanism. And the loading motor uses a regular square belt instead of a flat belt. So underneath, I'm just gonna lubricate it a little bit and turn up right and go from there. Okay, we have the underneath fully cleaned. Belts cleaned with rubber rejuve. This right here is actually the mode switch. It's a slider type. And again, those never really have any problems on these. Turns out this is a slightly different design where it had like an intermediate roller before it drove the idler. It turns out that the belt's in behind on this model. And the speed sensors right there instead of on the motor. The mode switch on the newer ones are actually over here instead, mounted to the loading motor assembly. So it's still, I would still consider this a first gen Shintom, but it's still quite different than the other ones I have. All right, and here's the circuit board underneath. Nice power supply as well. Almost there. I got the front panel off. We're gonna spray some deoxit in all the controls because I know the last time I used this, I had to press play a few times to get it to activate, so the controls are just a little dirty. So we'll take care of that now. Now, I've never serviced the brakes or checked them out on this, but as you can see, this one's a fail. That one, it's completely disintegrated to goo and the pad on it slipped off. The right one is a soft brake, so that one's not too bad, or would affect the performance too much, but the left one is the main brake. When you fast forward and rewind, there's hardly anything left. And on this one here, that one's still okay, but I'm gonna replace it because sometimes those slip. It's just because this thing's coming up on 40 years, 1984. And like I said, it probably would spool out into the cassette itself, but not in the machine. And sometimes it'll come out and maybe it'll crunch the tape. So we gotta address this issue. Now this is what I do to replace the brakes. I sacrificed a flat rubber belt, and it's roughly the same thickness as what was on there before. Cut them in the squares a little bit larger than the surface I'm going to be gluing it to, so I can grip it with the needle nose, and then any excess I'll trim off. I just use super glue. It seems to work perfectly, and in this application it dries fast and it stays. All right, as you can see, all new quote-unquote brake pads. Same thing. I mean, really, I just say that because but yeah, that'll work. And now I'm gonna put the real spindles back on. But what I do, I'll take that syringe of grease and I'm gonna squirt some in there and slip it on. Okay, we're back together again. Got the test jig in. New brakes, fresh grease, fresh lubrication. This motor, since this motor doesn't have the sensor on the back, there's a hole right there. I just put a drop of oil on that. That'll lubricate it just fine. What's going on here? Okay. Anyways, very quiet, smooth operating. Fast forward. Here's play. All right. Now, as mentioned, this is very stripped down. It's just a VCP single speed standard play rental machine. No special effects. And you can notice from the other first gen Shinton mechanisms, it's missing some pieces like this. There's a arm here that's supposed to switch back and forth. There's no cue, like I said, there's no cue and review functions on this, so it made it just like they just made it extremely reliable, good picture quality rental machine. So we're good to go now, but now I'm gonna service it. The pinch roller, as you can see, is kind of glazed over, so we're going to take care of that while we're in here. I had the camera set up to show head cleaning, and I completely forgot to hit record. And I even went through and took 400 grit sandpaper to the pinch roller here. But as you can see, there's no more glazing on it. And like I said, I was hoping this will be good for another 40 years. And I store everything correctly. All original components, all original belts. And what I was saying, and I realized I wasn't recording, was this was Funai's very first VHS machine. Fun fact, before this, back in 81, I believe was the year, I might be wrong, I'm just doing off the top of my head, there's another format, and you may have seen it mentioned on 8-Bit Guy, called CVC, the Compact Video Cassette by Technicolor. It was a joint venture between Technicolor and Funai. And believe it or not, Madman Muntz, you know, I at the 1955 Muntz TV, the same guy, Madman Muntz, invested in that. And there was also Muntz CVC machines out there too. And you'll see them on eBay. Like not the VCR, but like the matching pieces. Like I keep seeing a lot of RF modulators for it. It'll say Funai Technicolor Muntz on it. Yeah, it's the same Muntz. So I am trying to get a hold of a Technicolor Funai CVC machine. It was introduced during a time, you know, it was a compact video cassette. It's much smaller than Beta or VHS. The problem was it didn't catch on. It was during the format wars, and there was a problem with the tapes initially, and it caused a bunch of shredding and dropouts. But I'm gonna try to get a hold of one, because again, and around this time, 1984 or so, that realistic MC1000 boombox was OEM'd by Funai, and the circuit board design and everything are identical. Same type of components were used in that boombox, and it wasn't a cheap boombox. That thing is the best boombox I got, and the tape deck on it's the best portable one I got. Very comparable to component machines. So yeah, it was a totally different era for Funai during that. It's just like the 90s hit, and after 91, like everything went. All right, let's get this back together. All right, right here is important. One of the reasons why I did want to service this after working on those other units and finding the brakes have gone bad. Alright, that jumpiness is just the tape against that cheap tape. Now, the big thing. Does it stay in the machine? Is it taut? Yes, that's perfect. I'm gonna hit rewind. Taut. Yes. As you can see, it's perfect. And if I hit fast forward again, there was one time a few years back where luckily it wasn't on a good tape, but I went to eject and the tape got caught and pulled it out. I thought it was just the drive belt. No, and that was pretty much really the last time I really used it, but it was just the brakes, and that's why I'm saying for servicing this, or not just these, but I'm talking any vintage, truly vintage VCR, check the brakes. They're at that age where a lot of them are hitting 30 plus years old, and the brakes are just simply worn out, or if they're rubber, they're deteriorating, and they're no longer gripping, or they've whatever the case may be. So that's why I've been checking that, and that's why I haven't done a video on this yet, even though I did one to see 10 years ago this was fine. 10 plus years is fine, but you know, a decade later the materials aged a bit and it needed some servicing. So that's been taken care of. And I never did give it new lubrication. It didn't need it before, now it has it. So now we're gonna go ahead and button it up, but let's just do a play mode so you can see how that works in this. Perfect. And tape is just fine. Just check along here, make sure it's within the guides just fine. It is. So yeah, it's another quiet machine. The very first one doesn't make that cool head drum spin up noise either, but it has this. It sounds a bit different than the 8586 VP-1500. So we'll do this again. So that's slightly different. But hey, I'm happy the brakes work. Yeah, in fact, this is so old. You know, a lot of early 80s tape decks, when they hit the beginning, they didn't advance the tape past the leader. It'll do it when you hit play, though. Watch. Oh, no, not in this case. It did. That's the other thing. This thing is so different in the way it's laid out. It just automatically starts moving the tape as you hit play. That's just the function of it. So, all right, let's hit stop here. Perfect. Checked. I like how it tilts up at an angle there. So I have the VP-1500 right here. And there's the nameplate info. It's actually aluminum riveted onto the back. RF out and video out, audio out. There's no or VHF in on this one. And the RF modulator selection's actually on the bottom, right there. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to play a movie that may have been played on it when it was brand new, basically. Come on. takes a while for. I'll turn the volume up. And yet another high quality performer. Boombox from the real boombox era. So there you go. Let's try this. Pause it. Remember, 2-head machine. And what Fine Picture does is what the newer ones do with the noise cancel function. Let me get back to, there we go. Noise cancel function on that, it's the same thing. It's not showing up on the camera, but I can adjust it. So it's nearly a noise-free picture from a 2-head machine on standard play. But picture quality, though, is where it's at. And no what else to say. It's just a solidly built machine. I mean, it's a rental machine, and you think after all these years and all that use and abuse it received, it's all on original parts. I just had to change some rubber bits that failed with age. I mean, come on, in another 3 years, it'll be 40 years old. That's all. And like I said, there's no search functions, because like I said, it's very basic, but here's fast forward. Brakes are working great. Perfect. So yeah, there you go. Here's eject. And it does go up at an angle, so I like that. These early Funais I don't have much info on. And I don't know if this is the only top loader they made or not. So I put this down here because that's what was sitting there, but that's that VP-1500. But yeah, this is the very first, and I should have bought the very first, even though it would have been a total piece of junk, I should have bought the very last Funai DVD VHS combo unit. And not use it, just put it away. Just because this say I have it. Even though, because it's, again, polar opposite. This is high quality, that was total crap. I mean, if you were to actually use it, you'd have to get a year out of it. With subpar picture quality and so forth, but. So back to play.
Cruising the coast.
And once again, proper audio level output.
But no! The one older brother had to go and screw it up.
And I say that because a lot of other VCRs, the audio output level is much quieter than what it should be. I mean, like, example. Let's stop. Notice how, like, the audio level of the VCP is louder than the no signal. Hit play again.
Come on! Do it!
I just say that some VCRs, especially from the 90s on linear audio, you had to crank them just to hear them. So there you go. The very first Funai VCR, or technically VCP, because it's a video cassette player. And sorry for the reflection, but I polished it with Novus and now it's super shiny. So, thanks for watching, and hit like and subscribe.